Hello. So I just thought I would give a quick update on the spaces that we're looking at. So it looks like we were able to get rid of that ridiculously large deposit on the 30th Street location. That was what was going to make it a deal breaker. There was a bit of back and forth with people on the stream and that have been watching on whether or not I should have taken it, whether I should have worked with it, or whether I just should have said no. And it was the way that it was presented to me that made me say an immediate no. It wasn't a let's return to the negotiating table because we messed up on price. It was trying to convince me that the sky is green when it's blue. This is actually standard that we ask for the last 3 months, not the first 3 months for security deposits. Again, if you want to return to the negotiating table, let's do it. But I'm not a toddler. Please do not speak to me as if I am a toddler. I've had many commercial and personal leases. I know how this works. So Alan has hit it out of the park again, as he has many times in the past, and he got it negotiated to where it's just 3 months of the deposit based on what the first month of rent is, not the last three. He was able to negotiate the deposit back to a sane amount. He was able to negotiate the rents from that 16 to 15.5, 16,000 pie in the sky dream they had there down to the 12.8 that I had wanted, and he was able to get the demolition clause negotiated from the garbage demolition clause they had, where we'll pay you a little bit of your construction and give you some free months, to 6 free months, and you're paying me $200,000 to $250,000 if we demolish the building, amortized as time goes on. But still, it's a good amount of money, and he has done an absolutely excellent job of representing me every step of the way. And I got a little aggravated when he had agreed with them that the last 3 months for a deposit is normal in a 10-year lease. Again, at some point, when you're trying to grab 5 figures extra out of somebody's pocket as a surprise, you can't be surprised when they start acting like a customer. But I acted like a customer, and at the end of the day, we got what we were looking for. I let him know that we were going to end this, and we were not gonna. I was just gonna leave, walk away, and not deal with them. And he conveyed that to them in the best manner that he could, and it worked. They came back to the table and they offered all the terms that I'd like. So the lease for that space has been sent off to an attorney. My CPA recommended me an excellent New York City commercial real estate attorney to run all of this stuff by. Even if you have an attorney in another state or one of those online services, they may not be as familiar with all the laws in New York City. But most importantly, this attorney, since they've been specializing in commercial real estate and people who are signing office leases and things like that for the past 25 years, she knows where they're going to try to screw with me, what they're going to try to hide in there. She's used to how bad most of these template leases are for most of these large institutional real estate holding companies in New York City because she's dealt with them all. So she has the experience that I'd like, and she has the thumbs up from people that I trust and I know do amazing work. So I honestly, she said the way this works is I'm going to read through the lease with you and I'm going to highlight things, and then you're going to tell me what you think about what are you comfortable negotiating with them back and forth, what don't you think you're comfortable. Honestly, I think that doing that is just going to raise my blood pressure because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of stuff in that lease that's ridiculous, non-standard that they claim is standard, blah, blah, blah. So she said you're going to go through about 2 or 3 drafts. I gave her Alan's contact info. I gave Alan her contact info. And I just want them to work it out amongst themselves. I said, pretty much work it out amongst yourselves. Get me something that's ready to sign. And once it's ready to sign, I'll obviously review it and make sure there's nothing in it that I'm not uncomfortable with. But I don't even want to see the first draft at this point because it's probably just going to make my blood pressure go up, as most of these this stuff has. When I tell my broker I get 50 to 100 customers a day with a peak of 200 when we hit national news, and she tells the managing agent of the building we only get 20 to 30. The kind of thing that would get me kicked out of the building if I signed a lease based on her lie, or when they say the space is 1,800 square foot and it's 850, or when you're hiding flood damage behind a wall that you put up. This is the kind of stuff where I am admittedly losing my patience with the really low standard when it comes to morals and ethics or honesty and transparency in this industry. And I'm close to the point where I probably would say or do something that I shouldn't do if I start seeing them or hearing them just try to blatantly screw me over to my face and not apologize when I point it out. I can't. So I would like them to deal with it back and forth. I trust Alan. I also trust this attorney, and for them to issue me a lease when they think they have something that is ready to be signed. I don't want to look over the lease myself, not just for that, but also, again, this is not a small beans lease like the original one that I signed. This is for 3 to 4 times as much money, and I don't want to be in a position where I missed a clause or something because I'm not an attorney, and it winds up screwing me, as it has in the past. So I think it's wise to spend, the $300 to $600 or so to have an attorney go over it. Maybe if we wind up going back and forth way too many times, $1,000 or $1,200, just to make sure I don't get screwed. One example of this actually from a few years ago, so check this out. So when I first opened my business, I thought, you know what, I'm going to be a proper businessman. I've moved to a proper store. We're going to have proper insurance and do everything by the book, hire all the employees on the books, do everything right. We're not going to be like those, businesses that are fly by night. Because there's one place I was working at 12 years ago where everything was as fly by night as humanly possible, and it aggravated me. So there was this thing called business loss of income insurance. And the way it was sold to me from the Hartford is if your business is unable to make money, oh, you're so cute, Blackberry, aren't you so cute? If you're unable to make money for a certain period of time because something happened that's outside of your control, or something happens to your business that's outside of your control, we will pay you what you would have made during that period based on your business finances. So in 2012, I forget if it was Hurricane Irene or Hurricane Sandy. I forget. It was the 2012 hurricane. You can Google pictures of what the East Village looked like. It was pretty bad. Now, my store didn't flood. My store, it had, the basement was a little nasty. Some water got in through the door because of a lot of raining. But it wasn't flooded like the rest of the East Village. I was actually good. The First Avenue and 12th Street was very lucky. But we had no electricity because the Con Edison power plants had went boom. And because there was no electricity, it was really difficult to do electronics repairs. I need lighting in the store. I need to be able to plug things in. It's difficult to do. It's difficult to do our job with all the tools that we need and everything when there's no electricity to the entire neighborhood, much less my store. So we were not able to do business. And I go to file my claim with the Hartford. I figured, okay, I've been paying this insurance policy. It's a good thing I got this insurance policy so that now, I've only been open in this store for about 9 months now. I've only been, 8 months. I've only been open for 8 months. Thank God I got this policy so that I didn't lose out the entire week of business because, boy, I really can't afford to lose out on a week of business considering the fact that it's my first year in. I spent a lot of money opening the place and everything, and I didn't have a lot of money at the time. It's a good thing I got this insurance policy and did what I'm supposed to do. And I filed my claim, and they go, well, the claim, the Hartford pretty much pulled an apple on me. They said the claim doesn't cover water damage. And I go, it's not water damage. I can't get anything done at my store because the power is not on. It has nothing to do with water. My store is not flooded. None of the stuff in my store is water damaged. What are you talking about? And they said, no, you can't do work because there's no electricity, right? And that would be covered. However, the reason that you have no electricity is because the power plant blew up, and they blew up because they got flooded. And as it says on this page, in this subsection, and blah, 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 and this super specific legalese language, it doesn't cover that. And since I read the contract myself, rather than running it by an attorney, I pissed away 8 months of money paying the Hartford for an insurance policy that was pretty much as useless as vintage Apple Care before they actually started covering accidental damage or water damage claims. They said if your business has a catastrophe occur and you're not able to make money, we'll cover it during that time. They don't cover if the power plant blows up because of water damage, even if my building has no water. It's just, I'm not, again, stuff like that will just raise your blood pressure. So it's best to have a lawyer go through it rather than you comb through this 27 or 77 page document that's barely written in English to try to find the way that they were trying to screw you. So that's covered. Now, next week is a Jewish holiday, and the company that I am renting this place from, it sounds Jewish, so I think I'm not going to be hearing back from them next week. Probably the week after next week is when all of this will be settled. And if it is all settled, I'd honestly love to have Alan on the channel for a talk with all of you, and I think it'll be fun. And that's that. That's pretty fun. Another thing that I went over, I've been polling a lot of stuff in the community section. I have a lot of people that have been asking me, why don't you do a GoFundMe for this? I want you to do a GoFundMe for this. I actually have a Reddit message that I was going to post in a video later, where it was about 3 or 4 paragraphs of them saying, you're being a bitch, you're being a sissy by making demands of how people would give something to you. Because I think he was referring to something I've said in another stream where I said, if you are to donate, you should not donate unless I've made a monetary or financial improvement in your life. Meaning that your business used to gross $250,000 a year, and now that you've added board repair with these videos, your business now grosses $350,000 a year, and you wouldn't have done it because of me. So that's pretty much one of the only circumstance under which I would feel comfortable accepting somebody's money. And I actually did a video about 4 years ago. I think it was mid 2015 or mid 2015 or early 2016, where I explained why it is I don't use Patreon, why I did not want to use Patreon, why I don't use any sort of crowdfunding platform. And this was before Patreon got stupid with the political theater of banning people that they disagree with or they don't like or whatever. Before there was all that controversy over who's allowed on the platform, I had given my reasons as to why I don't use Patreon at all, and I don't want to use it. But a lot of people have been, really pushing me with the GoFundMe thing, and I think it was in response to a video I did where I had stated honestly that the reason that certain investors and also certain loan officers felt less comfortable giving a loan to the business was I've pretty much created a rubric for my competition on how to do my job and be me and compete that's available for free, and B, there are schematic documents available in that if Apple really wanted to push it on the legal side could create a risk for your business, and that makes it a higher risk category to invest in. So there's that. And a bunch of people were recommending using a site like GoFundMe. And I responded to most of them saying that's not something I'd want to do. It's not something I feel comfortable with. But I figured let me toss out the idea in a poll, and it's very interesting. So I had said in my poll, I personally would prefer to just work overtime rather than use a GoFundMe. Many people have suggested I try it. What do you think of this? And oh my God, there's like 300 comments on that going, "You piece of shit, you greedy fuck, you asshole, you entitled shit." I just find this. I found it particularly interesting for a number of reasons. Because some people were saying, you greedy bastard, you should just make your videos, you should just paywall them or sell them. And this is something that I find a little strange. So if I were to say, before you've made any money off my content, you have to pay $50 before you get access to the subscription, that's not greedy. But to say, here, you can watch this stuff for free for 5 years. It's all free. And I'm only suggesting that you leave a tip of $5 if you've made $10,000 or more off of the content, and if you think that it's actually worth it and you're in a position to do so, that's greedy. But selling the content is not, which is something that I think is, I honestly don't understand it. I really don't. And also there was an interesting aspect of it where people were kind of implying that if you were to use a GoFundMe, it's greedy, but if you use Patreon, it's business. That's also a little confusing to me because, and this is probably the way maybe please do correct me here because I don't have experience with these platforms. But Patreon appears to be a platform that focuses on recurring revenue, whereas the GoFundMes or the free funders or the other ones are focused on a one-time payout. So I don't really understand how it's less greedy to use the platform where there's a recurring payment, like $10 a month, but it's not greedy to ask for $10 a month, but it would be greedy to ask for a $10 one-time donation. That's also, there's a cultural aspect of it that I'm probably missing because I don't use these websites. I don't really follow them much other than when Patreon gets mentioned in the news for doing something stupid, which is more and more frequent nowadays. But I am kind of curious, and I'm still essentially leaning on the side of it's not something that I would feel comfortable doing, but it is something I wanted to bring up, especially since I have this 4-paragraph message in my inbox from Reddit from somebody essentially explaining, in a very polite fashion, by the way, I want to make that clear, that you're being a wimp or you're being a bitch in a nice way again, but because I appreciate the point he's trying to get across by trying to set boundaries for how people do things. And for this, I don't really know how I would be able to feel comfortable without that boundary. The idea that I would only feel comfortable accepting something if I've actually created value that's tangible, that you can see. Like, you were able to take 30 machines from customers that you otherwise would have outsourced to L2, fixed them yourself, that money went to you and your employees. Because you've done that for me, here's $5. That's better than, like, here's $5 just because I like you or something. I don't know. I don't think that is being a wimp, but maybe it is. Anyway, I don't really know. And the one thing that really got that discussion going, I believe, was the mention that I had made that the videos that I had produced were the very big reason that it was more difficult to get funding, both for those two reasons of A, I've shown my competition how to do exactly what I do. So what makes your business unique? And B, you have included schematics and documents in these videos. I have the recordings from Kilpatrick and Townsend calling me politely on behalf of Apple, saying we'd like to talk to you about these videos. There is a risk there, and I think that is something that is concerning to individuals who would be looking to put capital into a business from a lending or a financial institution. And it's understandably so. I mean, even if I knew that was, now granted, they did back off because of internet outrage in 2016. They're like, F you for going after this guy who has helped me save money by showing me how to replace a fuse in my product. But that doesn't really take away the legal gray area. I mean, my channel and pretty much everything I do exists because of social pressure, not because of actual legal precedent. And that is something that, honestly, I would do it again in a heartbeat because I've enjoyed it. It's made, it's one of the things. Nixon had this one speech. I think it was not a speech. He said it in a David Frost interview. It was something like the saddest people in the world are the people in the international watering holes in the Palm Springs and Palm Beach in the south of France that just, no purpose, retired, thinking, drinking too much, partying too much, thinking too little, because what makes life worth it is the struggle, the battle, having a purpose, even if you don't actually achieve what you want to achieve, and even if you don't win. Just having that there is what makes life worth living and fun and something that's worth moving forward with. And, I don't particularly think Nixon was the best of individuals. Maybe I wouldn't have been if I was in his position. I don't know. But the thing is, I think he has a point there. And being able to watch like the Tim Hermans of the world and the other people that have, or the Tony Tones, or the people that went from not having a job or to making a good salary for themselves after watching this stuff, that's cool. And I remember how aggravating it was to start from scratch doing this, not having any idea how to do any of it, and no information being available. I remember when I started, the best guides on YouTube for QFN soldering, I'm not kidding, when you would search for QFN soldering, and if anybody can find this video, by the way, I would happily buy you dinner at the restaurant of your choosing in New York City, because I've been trying to find it, and I can't. But I remember back in 2011 and 2012, or 2010, the only video on QFN soldering was this mat. They would put a QFN chip in the middle of the mat, and then they would have these long tracks, the 28 tracks heading up to the chip, and you could put flux in the tracks, and then you could melt solder and put your tip on the track, which was filled with flux so that the solder would stay easily flowing the whole way, and you would just run it up to the chip, and that's how you would solder it onto this fake PCB. And that was the best example. It was so frustrating because that was not even remotely realistic. They explained nothing. They showed you nothing. It was aggravating. So I remember saying, when I figure out how to do this, once I figure out the way to get wires under chips and do BGAs and figure out, what a PP bus is and all this stuff, I'm going to make sure that nobody has to go through this shit again. Because it was just my own pure aggravation and frustration with the lack of documentation, and something that I saw a need for in society that I thought would be a good way to make money, but also make my customers happy. When I saw the complete and utter lack of any information, and I experienced firsthand how frustrating and hard it was, I thought, I'm going to make sure that this is gone. This is not a problem anymore. And the pursuit of solving that problem has been incredibly rewarding for me, and like personally rewarding for me. Like, where I can go to sleep at night. I do sleep every now and then. For those of you who think I'm a vampire, it's just, bad genetics. Even if I get good sleep, my eyes still look like this. It is what it is. My dads look like that. My grandpas look like that. It's just is what it is. But it's something where I could lay down and go, in some small way, I got rid of a problem in the world. And as I got rid of that problem in the world, a bunch of people, have stuff that they probably otherwise couldn't have afforded to have because they saved money buying something used, or they got something fixed that they can now use, or B, the people that actually do the work now make more money. It's really cool to hear people say that I quit my shit retail job to do this. I got off of welfare to do this. And it's something, at the end of the day, I'm genuinely happy that I did this. But It is a kick in the nuts when a financial institution points to this work that you've done over the years and says, this is probably one of the reasons we'd only be comfortable giving you this much rather than this much. That is a kick in the dick. And I'll be honest with you, I stand by most of what I said in that Patreon video where I explained why I would not do crowdfunding from 3 to 4 years ago. But as times change, there are things that I didn't anticipate. And one of the things that I never anticipated when I made that video was that if I decided to grow and if I decided to seek outside financing, that entire catalog and library of videos that I did tied to my business would be the thing that acts as an anchor. Because I always thought the worst possible thing that could occur as a result of those videos, my worst possible scenario is that I waste a bunch of time with my business that I should spend seeking out clients and seeking out contracts. It's one of the things I remember when I reposted that video from a few days ago about Eli the Salt and the letter I had written Eli the Salt. One of the things I put in that letter was that I had pretty much put down everything that I was working on because I thought this project was worthwhile. I thought the worst thing that would happen is I'm going to once the churn occurs and I lose the educational or the corporate clients that I have that are sending me stuff, I won't make new ones. And that did kind of happen. I have one school left that sends stuff to us. That's it. We used to have more. I used to have time to call, to show up, to ask questions, go to meetup groups and meet people, etc. And now I kind of spend that time editing shit in my office, explaining what a pee-pee bus is to people on the internet. That was my worst case scenario, and it honestly wasn't that bad a worst case scenario, because if it didn't dawn on you by now, I'm not a social person, and I kind of hate being a salesman anyway. And we're like, so who does your educational institution use for your IT services? Well, look no further. We can fix all your MacBook needs. I can't do that. I hate it. I really do. So it's like, even my worst case scenario that I had in my mind, it wasn't something that I really cared about happening. But I never thought that would be the shit that gets used against me by some auditor or whatever that's Googling me and then saying, well, this is the problem that we have. You did this. So I know that you always thought if you had a decent credit score and you banked with us for a long time, that maybe you would be able to get something into the future, but you're probably going to be eligible for this rather than I never really thought about that. I honestly, it never occurred to me. It's probably stupid that it didn't occur to me, but it is one of those things where I then do wonder, have I created enough value in the because if they're saying we're less likely to give you financing because you have created content that helps other people do what you do, then my question then becomes, have I really helped that many other people do what I do? And if so, do they think that the content that I've created, if it has added 5 or 6 figures to their yearly income, is worth $5? Because I would feel sick to my stomach at the idea of somebody that actually has any sort of financial problem or somebody that doesn't make money in this field off of the content I've made donating something. Like the idea of some random person walking in and giving me $10, it just makes me sick. But if somebody who's like, yeah, I used to make $35,000 a year, now I make $85,000 a year, it's because I know the difference between VCCIO and VCore, shows up and says, thank you, you got me started doing this and you taught me it, here's $5. I don't really see any shame in that. And it's really surprising how many people do. And one of the other things that I think is interesting is some of the most vocal critics of this type of stuff are some of the people that were telling me it was stupid of me to actually release any of that information. And one of the things that I can't help but wonder is it frustration? Is it, I thought I would make more money. I'm doing devil's advocate, being them, So I thought I would make more money by hiding all the information to myself and that he would lose a bunch of money. But now the shoe's on the other foot where keeping all the information to yourself while in your self-interest has actually allowed you to make less money than an individual that gave it all away for free with the open source model. If you have a closed source model where you charge $100 for your software and somebody else is an open source model where they give away the software and the source code for free and let you see how it's written, but the guy with the open source software has more people willing to donate to him than you have in gross sales for your software that's $100, Man, if I were the closed source software person, I would probably be pretty pissed at that point because my entire model so far has been 100% open source. All the, in one of the, I've spoken with other people who do stuff like this, and I'm not going to say who because I don't want people flooding their pages with nasty comments and shit, but I've heard people say, we will give away enough information to show we're competent, but not enough information that you can do all the difficult jobs. And I've never believed in that. I give away all the information on how to do all the difficult jobs, but also the information on how to find the flaws that are really, for lack of a better way to put it, tech pay dirt. Like, the U8900s or the U1950s on the air and Retina, or the C7771s or the C9560s or the SSD, what was it? The SSD trace for the 0.9 volt or 1.9 volts powering the SSD on the A1706. I mean, like just that little SSD trace in and of itself is a gold mine. And I could put out enough content to show that we're good for an advertiser perspective without I could put out 95% of what I'm doing without showing you all the important shit, but hide the last 5% so that we would own the market in those fixes. And I've always just kind of seen that as a scumbag thing to do. And again, when it comes to a world with maybe like 5 or 7 billion people in it, I don't think that it's that much of an issue. I need to keep this knowledge private. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are potential customers. Do you really need all of those potential customers? But anyway, I don't know. Perhaps I am just a greedy piece of shit. I don't know. I just find it funny. If I don't do crowdfunding, I'm an asshole and I'm a wimp. If I do it, I'm a greedy piece of shit. Oh well. I also think it's funny that this happened in a poll. Like, this isn't even me saying, here's the page. This is me saying, I don't really agree with the idea of crowdfunding. But if I did it, what do you think? Anyway, let's see what BlackBerry has to say about all of this. BlackBerry, do you think I'm going to get a lease next week? Do you think that I am going to get a lease to my liking? BlackBerry? Oh, you are such a good girl. You are such a good girl. Absolute, adorable little angel. You're not a greedy kitty, are you? You would never want to go fund me for some greenies, now would you? You don't have to, because you could probably get greenies to send you shit for free, because you're so cute. Alright. I'm actually going to try to get to bed, because I have not slept well in a long, long time. Wish me the luck on this new space, and at some point, I had Hi hook up Paul's desk again because it wasn't hooked up after I moved my stuff back to the office. I'd like to go back to posting more board content. My brain has been fried with this all, like, riding around for real estate stuff, and there's been other aspects of business development and everything that have just been taking my time to the point where I can't really focus and sit down and do board videos the way I was before. But at the very least, I'd like to be able to provide you with some content from Paul. So look forward to that soon. That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something.